With Enos Canner right here live in studio, coming up in just a little bit. Time for us to go viral. Carly Lloyd reportedly received an offer to kick in an NFL preseason game after this video of her nailing a 55-yard field goal made the rounds on social media. And football isn't her only hidden talent. Throwing out the first pitch at the Phillies game last night, delivering what looks to be
from the rubber.
Yeah. Good at football.
Yeah, low strike zone. Strike zone.
Baseball. Decent at soccer. She plays with the U.S. women's national team. They're taking on Portugal at 7 Eastern tomorrow on FS1. I think one of the teams, actually, that they're not releasing the name of it, called and wanted her to come in tomorrow night to kick.
Absolutely, in the fourth preseason game. She can't because of this.
So it was a legit excuse.
But no, she says she might consider training for it and trying out legitimately in 2020. A man or woman, very hard to make an NFL team at age 38, which is what she would be. But, man, that was...
matter for a kicker.
And that 55-yard field goal, that was through the skinny uprights. Like the uprights that they narrow for preseason.
It was through the skinny upright. She does have the leg, but can she do it under the pressure, in the elements? And she's got to shorten up her approach. Field goal kickers can only take 3 steps because if they take more than that, they're going to block it. In this, she took 5 steps. So 5 steps help you kick it longer. She has to be a little quicker. Can she get it up with that same distance? But definitely should get an opportunity.
Man, that'd be a great story.
That'd be unbelievable.
All right, time for stories to start your morning.
You can rain on somebody's parade, but you can't be 5 steps. 3 steps is required.
You do your thing, weatherman. The Cowboys continue to move forward without Ezekiel Elliott, who remains in Cabo, awaiting a new deal. Reportedly been working out with Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk. Faulk said, quote, "Zeke's fitness is great. The only thing we can't simulate is the contact. See, how hard is it to stay in football shape, not just shape?
It's impossible. I mean, you can run on treadmills, you can get trainers and everything, but the thing that you can't do, you can't assimilate the 2-a-day practices and the body contact, running with people, avoiding people, with people on your body. You can't assimilate that. Yeah, you can push a sled, you can put it in the harness, but human interaction, no, you can't simulate that. Marshall, but they're doing the right thing. Marshall Faulk is a good guy for him to be around, to get him ready, but he knows. You need a couple games before you start getting used to getting your body built up for that contact.
This is a position, and Zeke's at an age that I do think that he's going to, when he does return to the Cowboys, I don't think he's going to fail any conditioning test. I don't think that he's going to be slower. But to Chris's point and Marshall Faulk's point, he's going to have been training by himself as opposed to having people pull him to the ground. So that'll, of course, take a bit of an adjustment.
We can't take for granted practice is important. That's why we have more injuries. The less contact with this new era of players, you start seeing more and more injuries. Their bodies are not ready to stay healthy for a full 16-game season.
All right, moving on. Yesterday, Eagles receiver Deshaun Jackson broke his finger in practice. However, he is expected to be ready in Week 1 when the Eagles play Washington. See, how hard is it to recover from a broken finger?
Not for a speed guy like D-Jack. We've said on this show so many times, no player in NFL history has scored more touchdowns of more than 60 yards than him. So the ball traveling in the air 45 to 50 yards, it's easier to track. And also, he's a body catcher. He's not a hand catcher, so he can cradle that ball. Get him a couple balls quick in space, let him run. Throw him some deep ones. That's what he should be doing the first couple of weeks of the season. But he's had a spectacular training camp. The best Eagles player offensively has made a spectacular play almost every day of training.
And obviously this isn't great news, but it doesn't appear to be truly bad news either. But to your point about how good of a training camp he's had, if he is vintage Deshaun Jackson, that is the key that could unlock a top 5 offense for Philadelphia. Yeah. To me, they check every box except for, do you have a legitimate over-the-top threat? You mentioned he has historically been one of the best of those in league history. If he continues the trajectory from this training camp, that he could be the biggest key on that Eagles offense, aside from Carson Wentz.
And he's one of those kind of guys, he can run when he was young, going to be able to run in the middle age, and when he get old. You can go to L.A., race him in the streets, man. He'll barefoot race you, man. That's the kind of speed he's got.
All right, finally, if you're anything like me and you're worried about the status of Antonio Brown and Big Ben's friendship, worry no more. There really isn't one. After 9 years together in Pittsburgh, where the two kept their working relationship relatively private, it seemingly came to a head yesterday. AB replied to a since deleted tweet of an interview Big Ben gave where he said he wished he didn't call out AB after last year's Broncos game. In response, Antonio Brown tweeted, "Never friends, just had to get my ends. Shut up already." In short, they're not friends anymore. See, why can't AB let this go? Why is it hard for him to just walk away from the whole situation in Pittsburgh?
Well, there's a number of people in Pittsburgh, and I would say Ryan Clark in particular. He told us who AB was, but we just don't want to believe it. We're just, well, maybe this is just, maybe this will get old, maybe he'll stop. No, this is who he is. Ryan Clark told us this. One of his teammates, now Ryan Clark's on TV, got a lot of respect for Ryan, and for Ryan to give you that type of intel, because we have that intel on a lot of players, but we just keep it. We don't want it until they expose themselves, and then when they expose themselves, that's when you start hearing, yep, this is the way the guy was. And people think that as you go on in life, and the more money you have, the more success you have, that it changes people. Yes, it changes them in this sense. It makes you bigger what you already are. It magnifies whoever you are, whatever your characteristics are. When you get some money and you get rich, you just become bigger in doing that. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's been well documented. They empowered not only AB, but other players. Bem Roethlisberger, within that system, how they run their football business, and he just became a monster. That's why he's in Oakland for a third and a fifth. You don't give up 100 catches, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, just shoe fly. Oh, go over there for a third and a fifth. No, you don't do that unless you really have some internal problems. And Ben is doing all the things that you would want him to do. Now, Ben might be lying, but I like that. At least he's doing it. Going out saying, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because he really shouldn't have said that. So, AB, this is just the beginning. I keep saying this. This will continue in Oakland because the management is allowing him to do that.
I only disagree with one thing you said, and that's the very end, when you said Ben is doing all the right things. Listen, Antonio Brown...
Well, what did Ben do wrong by saying...
No, I'm about to explain it. Antonio Brown obviously has exhibited erratic, irrational behavior, and he appears to have taken the mantle of the biggest diva in the NFL without, I don't even know who's the closest second place. Like, I think everyone acknowledges that. But that was not a real apology from Bem Roethlisberger. And if you watched it, it was a, oh, I'm sorry, but it was actually your fault. It was, I shouldn't have criticized Antonio. It ruined a friendship. I feel bad. As it happens, in the same game, I criticized James Washington. He thanked me for it. And now he's playing great, and it helped him. So, yeah. So, listen, did
AB run the wrong route?
Did AB run the wrong route? Possibly.
What did Ben say?
That AB ran the wrong route.
Okay, you need to take Ben on his word. Ben said, I wish I wouldn't have said it, but it needed to be corrected.
Right, but it was, but if we're going to get into the minutiae of that play, that was a play where Ben threw a pick to a D tackle.
I understand. He didn't say that the route was his fault. There was a few things wrong. Ben shouldn't have thrown it, and the route were wrong. Both can be correct, man.
Right, agreed. But if I don't show up to a show, and you, during that show that I didn't show up to, you have a segment where you screw something up, and it's afterwards, it's like, well, C did screw up that segment. Yeah, but I wasn't here. So, like, yeah, AB ran, he improvised.
That's not a good example, because they were in the same play.
The point is, one error was drastically worse than the other.
Okay, this is the reason why. Just listen to me on this. Ben is forced to throw that ball because AD didn't get his proper depth. If he had gotten his proper depth, Ben wouldn't have had to force it. If he goes 3 to 5 yards, goes in the end zone, Ben has a chance to pause. But when you flash as a wide receiver, a lot of times you force the quarterback to throw the ball. A lot of interceptions, I tell you all the time, are the wide receiver's fault. So I've had a lot of these conversations. I know how it works. And if I break my mark quicker, it makes him rush. It's timing, and we're both depending on each other.
Okay, but, all right, so let's just, I'll just take all that as fact, all right, and say that play specifically was entirely Antonio Brown's fault. That does not change the point. The point being that Big Ben, who's thrown multiple interceptions in the end zone that weren't just the receiver's fault, Big Ben, who threw 16 interceptions in the NFL, near the league lead last year, went out of his way, as he has in the past, to blame others, whether it's their fault or not, which we do not expect from franchise quarterbacks in this league. But the point I'm trying to make is, when we say, why can't AB let it go, AB is going to be who he is. It would appear Big Ben, the new and improved, clean-shaven, slimmed-down Big Ben, is also going to be who he is. Because he appeared to take the high road in that interview for just a moment and then got his point across the way he wanted to. Both of these guys were clearly, one thing that is clear, that was not a real friendship on either end. Big Ben knew he maybe had to placate Antonio a bit. Antonio said he was doing what Chris always said he was trying to do, which is suck up to the quarterback to a degree, because he's trying to get his catches and his money. All those things seem to be true, but no matter how crazy Antonio Brown acts, I can't change the history that in real time we knew, whether it was the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the coming out of the locker room for the anthem, criticizing teammates, that Big Ben has some of this responsibility on his hands.
No one has tried to say Ben wasn't part of it. But I'm explaining what happened. And Ben actually gave us great insight, because this is what I know. I know both the players involved. I know the coaches that coached them. And when AB was a younger player, he was just like James Washington. Ben was texting him, and AB was doing his job and shutting up. So Ben used that as an example, that when AB was like James Washington, I was doing the same thing. So I'm glad Ben gave me the insight. I'm not in the blame game. I know wide receivers, and I know quarterbacks, and I know the communication that goes on. I've been knowing AB for a long time. I'm not new to this. Both of them are at blame. But when Ben says and gives us insight of what happened, the wide receivers are very responsible for a lot of the mistakes that quarterbacks make. If you don't get your depth, you make them. You make them jump the gun, and you make them throw the ball to you, and bad things happen. Same thing happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't explain as well as I did, but that's what happened.
Okay, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers.